the 12th of June 1945. Kempton Park Racecourse, Surrey, England. The war in Europe has been over for exactly 1 month. A convoy of 3 military lorries rumbles through the iron gates past the empty grandstands where punters once cheered thoroughbreds, now converted into Britain's largest processing centre for female prisoners of war. Inside the trucks, 276 German women packed shoulder to shoulder, barely breathing. Auxiliary radio operators, radar technicians, administrative clerks from Wehrmacht headquarters in Denmark captured during the final collapse. They have been traveling for 19 days. First by cattle car across Germany, then by military transport through Holland, finally by channel ferry from Ostend in weather so rough half of them were sick over the rails. No facilities for washing, no privacy, no dignity. The lorries stop outside what used to be the weighing paddock. The canvas flaps open. June sunlight floods in blinding after days of darkness. The smell hits the British guards first. A physical wall of human misery. Unwashed bodies, soiled clothes, fear, illness, shame. Even the hardened military police, men who have seen Bergen-Belsen, who have walked through the ruins of Hamburg, step back and cover their faces. The women climb down slowly, helping each other, moving like the very old, though most are barely 25. Their grey Wehrmacht auxiliary uniforms are caked with mud. Vomit worse. Their hair is matted into solid masses. Many have visible lice crawling along their collars. Several can barely stand. Campondant Lieutenant Colonel James Whitmore stands at attention, clipboard in hand, prepared to process prisoners according to regulation. Read the articles of the Geneva Convention, assign barracks numbers, establish work details, standard procedure. He has done this 100 times. But then he sees them. Really sees them. One girl, maybe 19, is crying silently, tears making clean tracks down her filthy face. Another is scratching her arms so hard she is drawing blood. A third is trying to smooth her ruined hair with shaking hands. A gesture so heartbreakingly feminine that Whitmore feels something crack in his chest. He thinks of his own daughter, Margaret, 17, safe at boarding school in Devon, complaining in her last letter about the quality of the custard at dinner. He looks at these women again. Enemies, yes, Germans, yes, but also somebody's daughters. He makes a decision that will later appear in no official record. He turns to his second-in-command, Captain Eleanina Hartley of the Auxiliary Territorial Service, the women's branch of the British Army. "Belly the standard processing," he says quietly. "Take them to the ablution block first." Captain Hartley stares at him. "Sir, the standing orders specify immediate registration and I am aware of the standing orders, Captain. I am also aware that those women are human beings who have been living in their own filth for 3 weeks. We will process them after they have had the opportunity to bathe." That is a direct order. The women do not understand English, but they understand the tone, the gestures, the sudden change in energy. They have been prisoners long enough to know when something unexpected is happening. They expect the worst. In their experience, unexpected means punishment. They are herded, not marched, toward a long brick building at the edge of the grounds. The paint is peeling. The windows are grimy, but the structure is solid, built to serve the racecourse in its glory days. Inside is the ablution facility installed just 2 months earlier in preparation for the expected influx of returning British PS from Germany. 70 showerheads arranged in 2 long rows. Individual stalls each with a wooden bench and a curtain for privacy. Hot water tanks large enough to supply a regiment. The facility has been tested, inspected, approved, and never used. The arriving British prisoners were diverted to other centers. The showers have been waiting, pristine, and empty for someone to need them. Captain Hartley enters first. She is 31, severe, efficient. A veteran of the North Africa campaign where she drove ambulances through sandstorms and shelling. She has no patience for weakness and less for sentiment. She joined up in 1940 to fight Germans, not to cuddle them. But she is also a woman who has gone without washing for days at a time in the desert, who knows what it means to feel inhuman in your own skin. She makes her own decision. She turns to her squad of 8 ATS sergeants. "We are going to do this properly," she announces. "No rushing, no shouting, no treating them like cattle. They are prisoners, but they are also women who have been denied the most basic dignities. We will restore those dignities. Is that understood?" The sergeants nod. Several look relieved. They have been dreading this duty, expecting it to be grim, dehumanizing work. The German women are brought inside in groups of 20. The first group freezes just inside the door. They see the showers, the benches, the stacks of towels, and their faces collapse into confusion, then suspicion, then terror. Several begin to back away. One woman, an older one, perhaps 35, starts shouting in German, warning the others. It is a trick. Gas chambers. They are going to kill us like they killed the Jews. The panic spreads instantly. Women are crying, clutching each other, trying to push back toward the door. Captain Hartley does not speak German, but she understands fear. She does something she has never done in 5 years of military service. She removes her uniform jacket carefully, slowly in full view of everyone. Then she removes her tie, her shirt, down to her standard issue vest and service trousers. She walks to the nearest shower, turns it on full, and stands directly under the spray, fully clothed from the waist down, arms spread, letting the water run over her head, her face, her body. She stays there for a full minute, water streaming down, ruining her uniform, not caring. Then she steps out, dripping, and looks at the German women. Water, she says simply, pointing to the shower. Only water. A young sergeant, Patricia Mills from Cornwall, steps forward and does the same thing. Then another, then another. 4 British soldiers standing under running showers, fully clothed, shivering, their uniforms plastered to their bodies, trying to communicate the one thing that transcends language, trust. The oldest German woman, the one who shouted the warning, steps forward slowly. Her name is Greta Hoffmann, former Stabshellerin, staff assistant from Bremen. She has a university degree in literature and has been processing signals intelligence for 3 years. She is thin, exhausted, and has long since stopped believing in human kindness. She approaches Captain Hartley and touches the water running off her sleeve. She looks into the British woman's eyes. Only water, Hartley repeats. Greta nods once. She turns to the others and says something in German. Slowly, the tension breaks. One by one, the women approach the showers. The first one to undress is Laesael Brandt, 22, from Stuttgart, a radar operator who has been wearing the same uniform for 6 months. She removes her foul tunic with shaking hands, her shirt, her undergarments, everything, until she stands naked and shivering, covered in sores and scratches, and the evidence of long neglect. She walks to a shower stall. The British sergeants have tactfully turned away, giving privacy, something the women have not experienced since capture. Laesael turns on the water. It runs cold for 3 seconds, then 4, then suddenly blooms into blessed impossible heat. She makes a sound, something between a gasp and a sob, and stumbles. Sergeant Mills catches her by the elbow, steadies her, then immediately steps back, respecting the boundary. Laesael stands under the water and begins to weep. Not quietly, not delicately. She weeps with her whole body. Great heaving sobs that shake her thin frame. The sound echoes off the tile walls. Within minutes, all 20 showers are running and all 20 women are crying. Some stand motionless, letting the water pour over them. Some scrub frantically with the hard blocks of carbolic soap. The same soap issued to British troops. Nothing fancy, but clean, real, generous. Some sit on the wooden benches and watch the water run over their feet, carrying away weeks of grime in grey streams toward the drains. Greta Hoffmann washes her hair 4 times. Each time she lathers the soap, the water runs grey, then brown, then finally lighter. On the 4th wash, she sees suds, actual white foam, and she laughs, a startling sound, almost painful to hear. When did I last see soap bubbles? She whispers to herself in German. When was I last clean enough for bubbles? The British sergeants do not leave. They stand quietly along the walls, ready to help, to catch anyone who feints to offer a steadying hand. They do not stare. They do not judge. They simply bear witness. Captain Hartley, still dripping, watches from the doorway. She is thinking about her sister, killed in the Blitz in 1941, buried under a building in Coventry. She is thinking about the letters she has read from British PS describing their treatment in German camps, the cold, the hunger, the casual cruelty. She is thinking about Bergen-Belsen and Auschwitz and all the names that have become synonyms for evil. And yet she's also thinking that the woman washing her hair for the 4th time is someone's sister, too. That hatred has to end somewhere. That if there is to be any hope of rebuilding anything from the ruins of this war, it must begin with moments like this. Small moments, human moments. The first group takes nearly 2 hours to finish. They emerge transformed. Their hair is wet but clean. Their skin, though still bearing the marks of malnutrition and hardship, is scrubbed pink. They are dressed in temporary clothing, a mismatched collection of British Army surplus, women's auxiliary uniforms in various sizes, whatever could be found. Nothing fits properly, but everything is clean. The second group goes more quickly. Word has spread. These are only showers, no tricks, no traps, just water. By the third group, some women are almost eager. One girl, Anna Schreiber from Munich, 17 years old, captured while working as a telephone operator, actually smiles when she feels the hot water. It is the first time any British soldier has seen a German prisoner smile. That evening, Lieutenant Colonel Whitmore arranges for a proper meal. Not the standard prisoner rations, thin soup, and black bread, but a real supper. The camp kitchen, which has been hoarding supplies for the expected British PWS, opens its reserves. Shepherd's pie made with real mutton, precious and rationed, but suddenly seeming important. Boiled potatoes with a scraping of butter. Tinned peas heated through. Tea, strong and hot, with a spoonful of sugar per cup, an extravagance. In 1945, Britain, where sugar is strictly rationed, bread with margarine. And because the camp quartermaster has a sentimental streak, a single biscuit per woman, digestives plain but real, the women eat in the converted grandstand at long tables that once served tea to racegoers. They eat slowly, carefully, as if afraid the food will disappear. Many cry into their tea. Some cannot finish, their stomachs too shrunken from months of poor rations. But they try and they whisper to each other in German about the miracle of hot water and shepherd's pie. That night, bedded down in clean barracks with real mattresses and blankets that smell of soap instead of mildew, 276 women sleep deeply for the first time in months. In the camp office, Lieutenant Colonel Whitmore writes his report. He describes the arrival, the processing, the allocation of barracks. He mentions the use of the ablution facilities. He does not mention Captain Hartley standing under a shower in her uniform. He does not mention the crying, the soap bubbles, the shepherd's pie. Some things do not belong in official reports. Some things belong only to the people who were there. Over the next 4 months, Kemp Park becomes known among the network of P-camps as the decent one. Guards from other facilities whisper about it. How the women there are treated with basic respect. How they are allowed to keep their dignity. How the British commandant believes that the war is over and vengeance solves nothing. In August 1945, a delegation arrives from the International Red Cross. They have been inspecting P-camps across Britain, documenting conditions, preparing reports for the governments of occupied Germany. They expect Kemp Park to be like the others, adequate but grim. Instead, they find women who look healthy, who work willingly in the camp laundry and kitchen, who attend voluntary English classes taught by ATS volunteers, who have formed a small choir that practices twice a week, singing German folk songs that make them cry, and British songs they are learning haltingly, phonetically. The Red Cross inspector, a Swiss woman named Clara Dietrich, asks to speak to the prisoners privately. She is given permission. She interviews 20 women chosen at random. She expects complaints. She gets stories about hot showers and shepherd's pie. We arrived as animals, one woman tells her in halting English. Dirty, sick, ashamed. They gave us back ourselves. In September 1945, the first group is repatriated. 78 women cleared for return to what will become the British occupation zone of Germany. They assemble on the parade ground. Each carrying a small canvas bag issued by the Red Cross. Inside the standard kit, 1 bar of soap, 1 flannel, 1 towel, 1 change of underclothes, and a letter in German explaining their rights under the Geneva Convention. Lieutenant Colonel Whitmore and Captain Hartley stand at attention to see them off. It is raining, a soft English drizzle that makes everything grey and cold. Greta Hoffmann, who has been elected unofficial spokesperson by the other women, steps forward. She has learned enough English in 4 months to speak simply. She stands very straight. Thank you, she says, for the water, for the dignity. We will not forget. Whitmore nods. He does not trust himself to speak. Captain Hartley, who has not cried since 1941, feels her eyes burn. The lorries depart. The women wave from the back, not cheerfully, not joyfully, but with a kind of solemn acknowledgement. Something passed between captives and captives in this place, something that transcended the war. By December 1945, Kemp Park is empty. The last of the German women have been repatriated. The camp is decommissioned. The grandstands are scrubbed and repainted. Within a year, horses will race here again, and punters will place bets and drink tea, and no one will remember that this place once housed enemy prisoners. But in a small town outside Bremen, Greta Hoffmann keeps a bar of British Army carbolic soap in her dresser drawer, wrapped in paper, never used. In Stuttgart, Laisel Brandt names her first daughter, Elelenina, after a British captain she met for 2 hours. In Hamburg, another woman teaches her children that the war was evil, but not every person in it was, that kindness happened even in dark places, that she once knew a British officer who stood under a shower in her uniform to prove that water was only water. These stories are not in the history books. They do not appear in documentaries. There are no photographs, no official records beyond a few dry lines in a camp log. But they are real. As real as the soap and the hot water and the dignity restored, one shower at a time. And in 1982, when Captain Eleanina Hartley, retired, age 68, receives a letter from Germany, she does not recognize the name at first. Greta Hoffmann, the letter says, "You will not remember me. I was one of the women at Kemp Park in 1945. I wanted you to know that I never forgot, that what you did mattered, that I have told my children and my grandchildren about the day a British soldier stood under a shower to prove to frightened enemy prisoners that kindness still existed in the world." Eleanina sits in her garden in Hampshire, reading the letter 3 times. She has not thought about Kemp Park in years. The memories come flooding back. The smell, the fear, the crying, the soap bubbles, the shepherd's pie. She writes back. Her letter is short. "I remember you," she writes. "I remember all of you. What we did was not extraordinary. It was simply human. Perhaps that is what made it matter." The letters continue for 6 years until Greta's death in 1988. 2 old women, once enemies, writing about gardens and grandchildren and the weather, never quite saying, but always knowing that they are bound together by one day in June 1945 when the war was over. But the peace had not yet begun and someone decided that dignity mattered more than vengeance. Eleanor Hartley dies in 1996 at age 82. Among her papers, her daughter finds a small collection of letters in German, carefully preserved. She finds a single photograph faded showing a group of women in mismatched uniforms standing outside a brick building smiling hesitantly at the camera. On the back in her mother's handwriting. Kemp Park, August 1945. "We were all just trying to remember how to be human." The photograph goes into a box. The letters are donated to the Imperial War Museum. Someday, perhaps, a historian will find them and wonder about this small story, this footnote to the massive catastrophe of World War II. But the women who were there, the ones who stood under those showers and cried with relief, they knew. They knew that in the midst of history's greatest horror, small acts of decency still mattered. That seeing the human in the enemy was not weakness, but courage. That hot water and clean clothes and a cup of tea with sugar could be a kind of peace treaty written not in ink, but in gestures, in kindness, in the stubborn refusal to let hate have the final word. And so the story lives on, passed down through families, whispered in German and English, changing slightly with each telling, but never losing its essential truth. That after 6 months, without a bath, 276 women were given hot showers by soldiers who could have treated them cruelly and would have been justified by the standards of war. But they chose differently. They chose to see women instead of enemies. And in that choice, something larger than the war itself was affirmed. The idea that we are human first and everything else second. That even in the darkest times, even among enemies, even when every reason exists for cruelty, kindness remains possible. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Because it is what separates us from the darkness. Because it is in the end the only thing that survives when the battles are over and the borders are redrawn and the history books are written. Hot water, clean clothes, dignity. The things that cannot be rationed, cannot be bombed, cannot be conquered. The things that make us human, no matter which uniform we